All right, well, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alex. I'm going to be hanging out with you for a little bit here today. And what we're going to be taking a look at is how to set up and understand a chart of accounts in Aplos. So you may have seen some other webinars that go through kind of a whole software introduction or overview, but today we're specifically diving into what are accounts, how do you set them up, and then how do you use them in Aplos. So for anybody that is using our accounting product, any accounting product that you use, whether it be Aplos or QuickBooks or whatever, everything kind of boils down to three main steps that you do in an accounting software. The first is to set up your accounts, or what's called your chart of accounts, and that's what we're taking a look at here today. The second part, which we're going to do another webinar on as well, once you have your accounts set up, then you use those accounts in what's called transactions. And transactions are movements of money that you record that are either in or out of your organization. So money that you spend, donations you receive, bank transfers, all that kind of stuff is a transaction. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. And then the third step to any accounting software is pulling reports. So there's the three: accounts, transactions, reports. And if you have Aplos accounting turned on, then on the left-hand side here, when you click on the accounting menu, you can see two of those here. So accounts, transactions, and then reports is up here. So for anybody wanting to get started in accounting, the first thing you're going to want to do is set up your accounts. All right. So when I click on accounts here, this is the screen that I land on, and this is where you can create your chart of accounts here in Aplos. Now, all of the information that I'm going over here today can actually be accessed through one of our Academy posts as well. So if you want to read a little bit more detail and get some more information and kind of see the information presented in a different way, then click up here in the top right where it says welcome and then your organization name, and then click on Aplos Academy. That will take you here. And then you can click on the Intro to Nonprofit Accounting course that we've created. And all of this is free. And there's different lessons here. So the first one is what is accounting. Lesson 2 is what is fund accounting. Lesson 3 is what is a nonprofit chart of accounts, which will correlate with what we're going over here today. And then what is a general ledger? This gets into transactions and then reports and then some other helpful things that you can use for your nonprofit. Okay, so anyway, take a look at lesson 3 if you're curious. But for today, let's take a look at Aplos. So what are accounts, or what is a chart of accounts? Well, in accounting, there's 5 different areas of accounting, and this is your assets, which is money or anything that you own as an organization. It's yours, it's your possession. And then you have your liabilities, which on the page here, you can actually scroll through here and click on the different sections. The second section is liabilities, which is any money or anything that you guys owe as a nonprofit, as an organization. So any debt, any payables, any credit card balances, any amount that you owe somebody else for whatever reason, it's a liability. And then you have your equity. And equity is a little bit different for Aplos and fund accounting in that this is where your funds are created, which we're going to take a look at here in just a little bit. And then the fourth category here is your income. And income is a way, your income accounts are accounts that you create to represent any way that you get money. Okay, so any fundraiser donations or contributions or tithes or revenue or grant income, all those kinds of things are income related. And then the opposite of income here is expense, and that's the final category of accounts. And expenses are any way that you spend money. So any salary, rent, office supplies, dues, facilities, utilities, all that kind of stuff are all expenses that you're going to want to create. Okay, so those are the 5 different kind of areas of accounting: assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expense. So once you hit this page, you will see the options up here at the top, which is basically just showing inactive accounts if you want to. And then scrolling down, you have your funds. And this is where you can begin to kind of craft your chart of accounts. So a fund, what a fund is it's a distribution of your money. Okay, so it's any area within your organization that you need to know not only how much money have I received and spent for it, but also what is the current balance for blank. Typically, what I coach people on is if you have the answer to this question, which is how much money do I have set aside for blank, the answer to the blank is probably going to be a fund that you want to create here in Aplos. So here I have 3 funds. I have building fund, general fund, and missions fund. Now, again, these are not just ways that I'm receiving or spending money, but at any given time, if I need to know how much money in my checking account is kind of stewarded or set aside for my missions fund, that's going to be a fund that I want to create. Okay, so set up your funds, go ahead and add funds here. And whenever you add a fund, that will actually add an equity account here in the middle for you automatically, which will track that funds balance. So let's go through kind of top to bottom all the different areas of your accounts. So assets. Assets are, again, anything that you as an organization own. So at the most basic level, this is the money in your checking or savings or bank accounts. Okay. So we've got you set up with a couple of different categories here. This chart of accounts is a little bit more detailed than what you start Aplos with, but you can see that I've set up some different account groups: cash, receivable, prepaids, fixed assets, accounts receivable, and then I have the individual accounts here within those groups. And you can create a group by clicking this little button here. You can enter the name of the account group you want to add, and then click Add Group. That will then add it to the bottom here. And then you can use the little orange plus button to create a new account. So let's say I wanted to create a new account. So I already have a checking and a savings created, but let's say I actually have another savings account that I want to create. So I'm going to say this is 1003. I'm going to give it a number, which in accounting, your assets are typically numbered in the 1000 range, and that's just kind of a universal standard. So 1003, and I'm going to say savings 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add that account. Now, once I do, that adds to my group here. It's going to sort numerically, so you can see 1003, savings 2. And now that account is created, so I can now use that account to track that savings account's balance. Okay, so repeat the process for any assets that you need. So assets, again, are anything that you own. So this can be cash. This can be money that is owed to you, but you haven't gotten yet. So receivables. This can also be prepaid stuff or any fixed assets, land, buildings, equipment, furniture, that kind of thing. So go ahead and create all the ones that you need. Some other little tips and tricks here is if you ever need to edit an account, all you need to do is just click on that. You can edit the number and the name, and then click Update, and that will save the changes. And then specifically for your assets and your liabilities, you also have the option of clicking what's called a register button here. So if I wanted to use this savings account as a register, I would click that button and then click Update. Now, this plays into the next webinar that we're going to do on transactions, because what register means is it's setting this account up to have its own kind of running list of all the transactions that have hit it. Kind of like when you log into online banking, you've got your checking account, your savings account, and if you click on that, it'll show you all the transactions that have hit it. So you can do that for your assets as well as your liabilities, which lets you track credit cards in the same way. Okay, so there's your assets. Let us know if you have any questions on that. So moving down, we have liabilities. So the account creation process as far as groups and adding an account is the exact same, and you can still add registers here in the liability section as well. And so liabilities is going to be an account that you want to create to represent any money that you owe for whatever reason. So if you have, somebody gave you an invoice and you now owe them for some work that they performed on your property, that would be an accounts payable. Or if you have credit cards, you can add your credit card here. And so then you can track your credit card balance as it kind of accumulates, right? And then once you pay it off, it'll decrease that amount that you owe. This can also be payroll liabilities, and we're going to have another webinar on kind of payroll and some other more, advanced accounting kind of things later on. So let us know if you want the link to that. Some other liabilities can be accrueds. So if you are accruing fees or interest on something, you can mark it there, as well as any long-term debt. So go ahead and create all of your liabilities there. All right. And by the way, liabilities are typically numbered in the 2000 range, in case you're wondering. Okay, so equity is numbered in the 3000 range. And again, your equity accounts are created automatically based on your funds that you create up here. So if I wanted to categorize these a little bit more or add some more, I would have to click Add Fund up here at the top. Let me go ahead and show you what an account group looks like. So let's say I wanted to create an equity group for my restricted funds and then my unrestricted funds. So let's go ahead and create an account group and say this is for my restricted funds. Okay, add group. Now, once I add this group, here's another tip and trick, is you can actually move accounts within these groups just by clicking and holding this little up and down orange arrow icon thing here. So if let's say my missions fund and my building fund are my restricted funds, I can click on this and just drag this into the other group and then drop it there. Same with the other one. So now I have a new account group, restricted funds. I can rename this as unrestricted restricted funds. Okay, update. So now when I look at a report and I want to see a little bit more detail as to what's unrestricted, what's restricted, I can now categorize by these groups here. So my general fund's there, other ones are in restricted. Okay. So moving down, we've got income. Now, income and expenses are going to be the accounts that you use on a more daily basis. So assets, they're kind of set up once and you track their balances, but that's kind of where it ends. With income and expenses, this is more kind of an ebb and flow process for you feeling out how you receive money and how you spend money as an organization. So your income, what should you create as an income account? Now, again, income is an account that you use to track any way that you are receiving money. So not from anybody, like who you've gotten the money from or where you got the money from, but more of how. So as you see here, I've got two groups, income and then restricted income, okay? So for income, I've got accounts here called contributions income, grant income, special events. So any way that you receive money, create an account for that, and then you can use it in a transaction later on. I've also got revenue, fundraiser donations. So any way that you receive money, go ahead and put an account in there for you, and then you can use that in a transaction. All right. So lastly, we have expenses. Now, expenses out of all the different categories are probably going to have the most accounts created here, because let's face it, you spend a lot of money and you spend money in a lot of different ways. Whereas income can kind of be the same, your assets are pretty much the same, your debt's pretty much the same, your funds are going to be the same, but expenses might differ on a daily basis or on an annual basis. You might need to create more expense accounts. Right now I've got some account groups set up for salary, and then all of my salary related expenses are created here. So salary and wages, health insurance, payroll fees, payroll taxes. I've got facility. So any way that you spend money, so rent, pest control, landscaping, all that kind of stuff, go ahead and create an account for that. Create groups, move the accounts within the groups that you need, and then you are all set as far as your income and expenses go. One last note on income and expenses, you'll also see that I have a third column here, which is saying a fund name. So what does that mean? What this means is that when you create an income or an expense account, you can actually link it to a specific fund so that when you select this account in a transaction, it automatically selects the fund that you want that money to go into or come out of. Now, per transaction, you can always change the fund, so you don't have to do that. But if it helps you in your organizational mind, if you want to kind of categorize these different income and expense accounts for different funds, go for it. Go ahead and select the fund that it needs to go to. And then again, it'll automatically select that fund once you choose that account in a transaction. Alrighty. So once you go through all of these steps, once you create your funds and all of your asset, liability, income, and expense accounts, you have now created what's called a chart of accounts. It's really just a fancy way of saying this is your list of accounts. So once you have this created, now you can go on to the second step, which is entering transactions using those accounts, which we'll take a look at here in just a little bit. Okay. One last thing I wanted to mention here is up at the top, up at the very top of this screen, you have a couple of different sections that you can access here, one of which being tags, another one starting balances, and then another one budgeting. I want to take a look at starting balances real quick. And starting balances, for those of you who are new to Aplos and you're wanting to get things set up, the first step, create your accounts, okay? Before you move on to transactions, the starting balances is going to be something that you want to put in here. And a starting balance is the amount of money that you have as you are coming into using Aplos. So not necessarily the day. So today's a Saturday. I'm not going to, choose to start entering transactions today, but let's say that I wanted to start using Aplos as of January 1, 2015. And so these values, these amounts are going to be the balances of my assets and my liabilities as of the day I'm going to start entering transactions in Aplos. So what I would do is go to my bank and find out the balances of my bank as of January 1st. So let's say my checking has $10,000 in it and my savings has $5,500, okay? So what you would do then is you'd find the account that you want to put a balance in. So let's say checking, and then it's asking you per fund, how much money do you want in that account, all right? So even though I have 10,000, I'm going to say that 3,000 is kind of allocated or set aside for my building fund. 3,000 is set aside for my missions fund, and then the remainder, 4,000, is for my general fund. So this is where fund accounting comes into play. You don't need to have a separate bank account set up for each fund that you have. You can have one bank account, much like you do in real life, and just use funds to keep track of the individual balances within that bank account. All right. So go through here, do it for your checking and your savings and any other assets and liabilities that you need, and then click Update. And that will now give you a starting balance in Aplos, so that way any transaction that you enter from here on out will automatically add to or take away from that starting balance. Okay, well, thanks for showing up today. I appreciate you taking the time. As kind of a recap, we took a look at accounts today, how to set those up in Aplos, and how to kind of think through what accounts you need to set up for each different accounting category here. If you have any questions regarding accounts or setup or basically anything else that you need, feel free to contact our support team. We are more than happy to help with that, and the support is free, which is also a big benefit. You can do that in a couple of different ways. You can either email us at support@aplos.com, or you can give us a call using our 888 number, which is 1-888-274-1316. And then the third option here is down at the very bottom right of your screen. You'll notice this little orange question mark icon here. If you were to click that, that's going to go ahead and open up all the conversations that you've had with us prior, or you can start a new message, and that will send a message to our support team, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Typically during the week when we're open, we can respond within an hour or so, but feel free to shoot through any support questions you've got there, and then we'll be happy to give you some help whenever we become available. Alrighty, so thanks again for showing up. Appreciate you taking the time, and let us know if you have any questions. Take care.